Today I want to talk to you about a world of givers and takers. I call this a tiger doesn't change its stripes. Mom used to say that to me all the time. Listen, there are givers and takers in this world, but like a tiger, people tend to show their true stripes as a giver or taker when given the chance. Just watch. It won't take too long to figure out who's the giver and who's the taker. Today I'm going to show you through Genesis chapter 12 how remember Lot and Abram, how Lot's selfishness and sinful taking heart was unveiled when given the chance by Abram to choose which part of the land that he wanted to inhabit. So let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to Reason for Truth. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. You know, truth comes first, reasons come last, but we're always and constantly learning, starting with the Word of God and then other extra biblical materials. When we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. And when you come to this channel, we want to make sure that you learn well. That means we have to teach well. Teach truthfully and be informed and take the time on our end to do it right. Okay, how often has a friend or a boss or a neighbor or otherwise offered you something? All right? Was the neighbor being neighborly? Were they simply trying to be polite? What were they offering you? Was it something they really needed themselves, but they would do without for themselves just to offer you? Was it something they were giving you out of their abundance? If they got $1 trillion, they give you $100. It's not much of a sacrifice, but like the widow's mite, right? She gives all she had as a penny. She gave quite a bit. To be sure, it takes a bit of discernment to properly accept or decline an offer. There are times, by the way, when we're not, people will offer it. It's wise and it's the right thing not to take, or at least ask them and have a conversation with them about what they're offering us. But then there's times to take, and they don't want to deny them the being blessed. I was going into Washington, D.C., a church that I speak with, my good friends outside Washington, D.C. I'm like, the gentleman wanted to carry my luggage. I'm like, I just come from background. You don't have anybody carry your stuff for you. And the pastor says, no, don't. You're going to listen. You're going to cause him to miss the blessing. So it meant something to him. Said, okay, that was fine, and I would have been just as happy to carry his luggage. But that's the heart we should all have, right? Serve one another. Just because someone offers you something, though, doesn't always mean you should accept it. Instead, let's stop and think about the other person, putting them before ourselves. From there, we can make more biblical assessment, right, as to the blessing or decline the offer with gratitude. Sometimes we accept, as I said. To be clear, though, there are times when people want to give out of their sacrifices I just told you about. And, they know it blesses them, and then we have to go with the flow. But there are times where we kindly decline if we know it's going to hurt somebody, right? And they're just being kind because they were raised that way. Biblical example, Genesis 13, we find Abram and Lot. Remember Abram's nephew? It reminds me of a snotty-nosed little spoiled kid. But anyways, traveling to the land that God had promised Abram in the future Israel state. He was kind and took Lot with him. And if you remember, Abram was rich in livestock, silver and gold. Pretty rich guy at verse 2. Needed a lot of land for his tents, his servants, his shepherds, his camels, his cattle, all those animals, whatever he had, sheep. As it turns out, Lot needed much the same because he had a lot of stuff too. And upon journeying from Negeb, that's Negeb, as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the very beginning between Bethel and Ai, that's not artificial intelligence, it's just AI, it's called AI. To the place he had made an altar at first, Abram called upon the name of the Lord. Lot came with him, and shortly thereafter, what happened? Verse 7 there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. There lies the rub. To keep the peace, Abram was kind and offered Lot, being the older, he offered Lot to choose. He said, he said this is between the very best of the land and I guess not the rugged countryside, which is not as nice. So let's remember that Abram was Lot's senior, and as older uncle, he was not his equal. Seems that this event kind of separation ought to have included some, I think, sense of courtesy and conversation between the two. Abram was seems to me like a man of lesser words. Lot was just kind of more the young, more aggressive, full of testosterone, greedy and selfish. In verses 8 to 9, we see a lot of courtesy exhibited, not by Lot, but by Abraham. And we see who was, Lot Sr., by quite a bit. And it was relatives, they were relatives. So they were family, they were kin. And so Abram wanted to keep the peace. Very selfless man. He keeps the peace and he trusts God. And Abram says a lot, let there be no strife between you and me. We're family is what he's saying. And between your herdsmen and mine herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. It's not the whole land before you. Separate yourself from me. And if you take the left hand, then I will go to the right. And if you take to the right hand, then I will go to the left. Verse 9. And Lot did what? He looked up, chose the Jordan Valley, as the Jordan Valley was well watered. So a bit of history. Irrigation systems had been used for a long time. The Italians set it up, of course. Lots agreed to inhabit the Jordan Valley with its lush vegetation. It was just too much for Lot to pass up. And what was in there? Well, exposed him to the wickedness of Sodom, the city of Sodom, verses 12 and 13 and 10. Chapter 10, 1 to 25 addresses this. This also included the city of Zoar, a town located on the southern end of the Dead Sea, 14:8, chapter 14, verse 8. But taking advantage of others, this is a big issue, and this is kind of the subject matter of today. When we take whatever and whenever something's offered to us, we risk hurting the other person if we're not careful. Well, sometimes we can, sometimes we ought not, sometimes we ought. Losing our witness for Christ if we're not careful, and taking resources, it's kind of like overstaying your stay, right? You're welcome. And we have to make sure we don't do that. So remember the golden rule. The golden rule is found in Luke chapter 6:31, which says, and as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Right? So don't do something, we'd say, well, I wouldn't do that, but he offered it to me, so I took it. That's the attitude I'm talking about. So in AI, it's artificial intelligence, entry on Google points out properly that taking advantage of others is considered bad. It's considering wrong. That certain AI knows what bad and good and wrong, right or wrong, good and bad are. But it goes on to say because it's bad because it involves exploiting someone's vulnerability of kindness for personal gain. That's what we're talking about. They're right here. AI is right here, which is disrespectful, unethical, and can cause significant harm to the person, their well-being, right? Potentially damaging their self-esteem, and they're getting a little bit of the emotional and trust in others. That's true. Overall well-being. So it's essentially treating somebody unfairly without regard for their feelings or needs. Well, we got to be discerning and careful. Use wise generosity, as my cousin says. Here are some key reasons why taking advantage of others is wrong. First, lack of respect. It demonstrates a lack of disrespect for other person's boundaries and dignity. Secondly, selfishness. It prioritizes your own need and desires above the well-being of the other person. Third, the potential for harm here, being taken advantage of, can lead to emotional distress, anxiety. That goes back to hurting the other person, feeling powerless. Fourth, erosion of trust. No one wants that. It damages the trust within the relationship, making it difficult to build healthy connections. Fifth are the moral implications. Moral. This is getting into God's deal. Most ethical frameworks consider taking advantage of others as morally wrong. I would say that stops with God. That is the ultimate moral wrong. All other things are built on God's true God, biblical ways, okay? The lesson is simple. Did Lot give thought to Abram's needs? The answer in short is no. Did Lot put Abram's needs before his own? No. Did Lot act selfishly or selfless? I would submit that Lot acted very selfishly in his own interests without really giving thought as to Abram, right? Didn't ask him, hey, what do you want, Uncle? I know you took me with you. I want to be respectful. I didn't read any about that. Maybe it happened, but I don't see it in the Word of God, so I can't assume it was. That said, as Christians, we can read the story and learn how to better live out the Christian life as an example. And one of the ways we can learn about how to be is learn not how to be or how not to be. Learning from the right and the wrong. And it's clear here that we want to emulate Abram's life, not Lot's. But in conclusion, the words of Jesus that he himself said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. Acts 20:35, this means that giving is better than receiving. And as a result of being a generous person who thinks of other people, the other person draws our heart towards God. It does. It's important to note that when you give, you're not really to talk about it, by the way. Just give. Don't make a big deal about it. Listen, God gave his only begotten Son selflessly so that he could have life, that we could have life everlasting. And it's a gift. So don't give expecting to get something back, right, in return. And in the end, remember, there are givers and there are takers. Tiger doesn't change its stripes more often than not, sadly. But sometimes they do if they come into Christ. That's the way the tiger changes its stripes. And like a tiger, people show their true stripes as a giver or taker when given the chance. So today we saw through Genesis chapter 12 how Lot's selfishness and sinful taking heart was unveiled. I mean, didn't hurt Abram. He was actually blessed because God blessed him for doing the right thing. And listen, and he took the land, and God blessed that. So what happened to Lot? Well, we saw what happened to Lot. He ended up getting caught up in Sodom, ended up living in a very immoral land. So Lot could have easily asked Abram what he wanted, to split the difference, but he didn't. And that's the sad point. So let's choose our stripes wisely, biblically, when the time comes. For people to interact in our life, let's make sure we're giving more than we are receiving or taking. Okay, that's all I'll say. Make sure you go get trained up at equippedacademy.com. Those courses are very well priced. You can anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter what country, you can have access to them. It's internationally available. equippedacademy.com. Besides that, make sure you join my community. Hey, listen, if you're in another country, especially, or the United States, join. You just go to StephenGarofalo.com. It's free. There is an option for $5 a month, but you don't need that unless you feel in time that you want to. Outside of that, we want you in there, even for free, no cost. So we'll see you over there, StephenGarofalo.com. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Boom, Guncio Sinistro. See you at the next episode. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo, and this is your Reason for Truth for today.